The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been incredible for the sporting world. Every sport benefits from automating the mundane or time-consuming tasks. 10-pin bowling becomes significantly more enjoyable without having to worry about resetting the pins. Caddies make an already relaxing sport a near blissful experience. Wimbledon's centre court roof allows for play come rain or shine. None of these improvements would be possible without the many historic advancements in technology that took place throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. But some sports got more than improvements. Some got the spark of life. You can't have motorsports without motors. The thrill of controlling tons of metal at hundreds of miles per hour creates an adrenaline rush equal to that of other acts that spit in the face of death. It's a shame it's far too risky for a layman to compete, and far too expensive for the significant majority of wannabe racers. Add on a heavy corporate influence, minimal changes in format, and the inherent repetitive nature of races, and you have a difficult sport for many to engage with. You can't have esports without computers. Playing games in a virtual world where the only limits of what's possible is limited to what humans can conjure is a blessing upon those living today. Over the course of the last few decades, respect for esports has reached new heights. With an ever-increasing selection of worthy games becoming competitive sports in their own rights, the biggest problem remains the near-encyclopedic knowledge required to play and understand the most popular games. In addition, significant balance changes may fundamentally alter how these games are played, quite unlike traditional sports like football or tennis. People who fall in love with one version of a game may not like what it turns into. The fate of the game played will ultimately be decided by unelected designers. Over many decades, cars and computers have turned from expensive luxuries to near necessities for modern life's trials and tribulations. It's human nature to take common tools and turn using them into a fun competition. It's a formula we've followed since we've been human, and maybe even before. The oldest sport in the world is considered to be wrestling. A simple premise: immobilize your opponent before they immobilize you. No automation required, and for thousands of years, no way of automating it. Until 1987, at a convention in Denver. There exists a dark truth behind NASCAR's popularity: the possibility of spectacular crashes. When racing heavily modified machines at speeds upwards of 200 miles per hour, the drivers are a hair's breadth away from disaster at any given moment. The sport's rise to fame was soaked in human blood up until 2001, with Dale Earnhardt's death being the catalyst for new safety measures implemented to the seating, tracks, and cars themselves. While these safety measures have proven successful in eliminating fatalities from the sport, viewership and ratings have declined for a decade since. The question arose: how do you obtain the visceral joy of seeing something destroyed while also keeping harm to a minimum? NASCAR may never have the answer to this, but a group of self-proclaimed mad scientists figured it out decades ago. You cut out the middleman. The Denver Mad Scientists Club built their own vehicles. Small, light, in fact barely larger than a shoebox. Controlled remotely, these would race in the first ever Critter Crawl, which was met with very positive reactions all around. Given the available power for these pint-sized critters, the adrenaline rush provided by the race was not large enough for the scientists. One common request was levied at Bill Llewellyn, the lead scientist behind the project. Wouldn't it be cool if the critters fought each other? And thus, in 1987, the Critter Crunch was born. With a weight limit of 20 pounds, these critters would battle each other on a hotel table, essentially performing robot sumo wrestling. The objective was to immobilize the opponent, typically by knocking them off the table. The first set of rules did not allow damage to the table, limiting the options for offensive weaponry, but this was changed in later years. While the crunch was more of a proof of concept than a fully realized sport, it still occurs each year. Like many trend-setting creations, it set the groundwork for something more remarkable to take its place in popular culture. In 1994, a man by the name of Mark Thorpe hosted a robot combat event named Robot Wars in San Francisco. The main difference between Critter Crunch and this? The size. The 94 series introduced robots with a weight of up to 100 pounds, with the last series in 1997 increasing the weight limit to 170 pounds. This apparently wasn't enforced particularly strictly, with one robot entering the 1996 competition at a staggering 450 pounds, just over 200 kilograms. This was an era of robotic experimentation. The rules allowed for many different forms of weaponry: chainsaws, cutting discs, lifting arms, axes, almost anything you could mechanically put together. Jamie Hyneman of Mythbusters fame even competed in the 1995 and 1997 wars, where his robot Blendo was asked to stop competing for safety reasons, as the spinning bot would send pieces of its opponents flying into the spectator stands. Robot Wars gained large popularity within the States, and it wasn't long before it garnered international interest. The company sponsoring Robot Wars, Smile, partnered with a UK company called Mentorn to produce the series in the United Kingdom. Again, it proved popular, so the Brits did what they do best: steal items of cultural significance and claim them as their own. Mentorn acquired worldwide broadcasting rights to Robot Wars, and in 1998 premiered their first standalone series to a British audience. If the US series was known for its experimentation, the UK series was famed for its refinement. While many different styles of robots competed to mixed success, 3 weapon archetypes began to show consistent results. The Flipper, used primarily to upturn opponents, separating their locomotion system from the floor. If powerful enough, it can also send opponents through the air, causing impact damage from landing, or even sending them out of the arena itself. Some flippers also doubled up as a self-righting mechanism, or Shremek. The Crusher, typically hydraulically powered, forcing tons of pressure into a single point. This could puncture even the toughest of metals, causing serious damage in a controlled, precise manner. These weapons also allowed the wielding robots to dictate the flow of a battle, with any pinned opponents unable to escape the majority of the time. The Spinner, chaotic evil. Make a large, heavy piece of metal spin as fast as you can, and then run it into the opponent. Causing heavy internal and external damage, the Spinner is the ultimate weapon for uncontrolled destruction. These 3 archetypes were proven most successful by 3 robots: Chaos 2, Razor, and Hypnodisc. The definitive flipper robots in Series 3, Chaos 2 holds the title for the most Robot Wars champion wins, as well as being the first robot to flip an opponent out of the arena. It also holds the record for the most opponents beaten this way. Many of the strengths in Chaos 2 lie not within its weapon, but the nimble drivetrain combined with the experienced driver. Captain George Francis competed in every UK Robot Wars series pre-reboot, with 5 of the entries being Chaos 2. The lessons learned from the first 2 series proved invaluable. Create a quick, reliable robot with a powerful weapon that has a large margin for error. With the weight limit being increased to 100 kilograms in the later series, Chaos 2 managed to remain successful even at a meager 84. Simultaneously David and Goliath, it won Series 3 and 4 handily, sending many opponents collecting air miles. The weakness would prove to be the poor armor, particularly the rear, where the CO2 canister containing the fuel for the flipper would be pierced semi-regularly. Razor, the sleek and menacing bird reptile, and the most wins of any competitor in Robot Wars history. The infamous beak provided 9 tons of pressure at the tip, causing even the toughest of metals to bend, splinter, and snap. While many competitors imitated Razor, none could quite recreate the success. Like Chaos 2, the secret to victory lied within the control of the robot. A skid-steer system focused around rotating the back around wheels designed partially for horizontal movement allowed for an always offensive approach, with the Crusher consistently facing the opponent. The first iteration of Razor had no self-righting mechanism, but from the 3rd series onwards, even Chaos 2's flipper would have a hard time keeping Razor down. The wings on the side of the beak functioned not only to right itself, but as a style point-winning celebration upon defeating its prey. With such a tight and cohesively designed machine, its weaknesses were few and far between, mostly coming down to the reliability of the bot. However, if your only hope for defeating Razor is praying for a loose screw, that should speak volumes as to how feared it was. Finally, Hypnodisc. Spin to win, the motto of the Rose family that built it, and both spin and win it did. Its first showing up against Robogeddon was the most destructive fight possibly ever shown on Robot Wars, a fight so brutal that the opponent was unrecognizable at the C-score. Despite reaching 3 consecutive grand finals, Hypnodisc never managed to nab itself a tournament win, although it is remembered perhaps as the most deserving of one. The first iteration of Hypnodisc featured an 18-kilogram flywheel spun at up to 600 revolutions per minute, with teeth on the side to rip and tear pieces of armament off of opponents. Each iteration would improve on every area of the robot, from wheels to flywheel teeth to introducing a self-righting mechanism. The titular disc created a sense of impending doom as it spun to full speed, enhanced with an iconic death whir akin to an air raid siren.
Hypnodisc, what a mighty machine this is!
While the first iteration had sharp, thin teeth on the disc to pierce thin armor, it will soon realize that blunt, thicker teeth would create more damage to better armored bots. From the 4th series onwards, even the toughest of shells would suffer from a little bit of hypnotherapy. Its weaknesses were originally its lack of Shremek, but this was fixed in the 4th series too. The tactic became to break the fist of Hypnodisc with your robot's face. If you're quick enough, you can prevent the disc from spinning at full speed, reducing the damage it's able to cause. This proved to be a somewhat successful strategy, if executed correctly. If it wasn't, you wouldn't be taking home one whole robot. Despite the unmatched entertainment Robot Wars provided, it has since been cancelled, rebooted, and cancelled again. Today, if you want to view state-of-the-art robot combat, you can tune into the USA's BattleBots. Originally created in 2000 as a response to losing control over the Robot Wars brand, it ran for 2 years before being cancelled, where it remained in limbo until 2015, where it was rebooted, in a similar vein to the UK's Robot Wars. Now, it remains as the biggest English-speaking televised robot combat event. The original UK Robot Wars ended in 2003. If you're wondering how much robot combat has evolved in nearly 2 decades, well.
Oh! Who just punted Soulblade? Is it out of the arena? He's done it! Holy smoke! Somehow get back in there! Oh my goodness!
It's pretty good. The next series is coming on the 6th of January. Just a heads up.